Welcome to our world. Speeches by Joseph Stalin, December 11, 1937, November 7, 1941, October 14, 1952. Allow me to express my deep Bolshevik gratitude for the trust you have placed in the Bolshevik Party, which I represent, and in me personally, as its representative. I understand well the significance of trust. Naturally, it imposes on me a new, additional obligation and adds a new responsibility. Well, among us Bolsheviks, it is not customary to shy away from responsibility. I accept it willingly. On my part, I would like to assure you, comrades, that you can firmly rely on Comrade Stalin. You can count on the fact that Comrade Stalin knows how to fulfill his duty to the people, to the working class, to the peasantry, and to the intelligentsia. November 7, 1941. Comrades Red Army soldiers and sailors, commanders and political workers, workers and working women, collective farmers and collective farm women, intellectual workers, brothers and sisters in the enemy's rear, temporarily fallen under the yoke of German marauders, our glorious partisans and partisan women, destroying the rear of our enemies on behalf of the Soviet government and our Bolshevik Party. I greet and congratulate you on the 24th anniversary of the Great October Socialist Revolution. Comrades, we are celebrating the 24th anniversary of the October Revolution in difficult conditions. The treacherous invasion of German marauders and the war they have forced upon us has created a threat to our country. We have temporarily lost a number of regions. The enemy is at the gates of Leningrad and Moscow. The enemy hoped that after the first blow, our army would be dispersed, and our country would be brought to its knees. But the enemy miscalculated. Despite the temporary setbacks, our Army and Navy are heroically repelling enemy attacks along the entire front and throughout the vastness of Europe. And our entire country has organized into a single fighting camp, together with our Army and Navy, to ensure the defeat of the German invaders. October 14, 1952. 23 years ago, our country was in an even more difficult position. Remember 1918, when we celebrated the first anniversary of the October Revolution. 3/4 of our country was in the hands of foreign interventionists. Ukraine, the Caucasus, Central Asia, the Urals, Siberia, and the Far East were temporarily lost. We had no allies, we had no Red Army, we were only just beginning to create it. There was a lack of bread, a shortage of arms, a shortage of equipment. 14 states were attacking us. But we did not despair. We did not falter. In 1 year, we organized the Red Army and turned our country into a military camp. The fate of the Socialist Revolution was resolved in the war against the interventionists. And what happened? We defeated the interventionists, regained all the lost territories, and achieved victory. Now, the position of our country is much better than it was 23 years ago. Our country is many times wealthier in industry, food, and resources than it was 23 years ago. We have strong allies who, together with us, form a united front against the German invaders. We now have the sympathy and support of all the peoples of Europe, fallen under the yoke of Nazi Germany. We now have a remarkable army and navy, defending a free and independent Europe alongside us. We face no serious shortages of food, arms, or resources. Our entire country, all the peoples of our nation, support our army and navy in their effort to crush the fascist German invaders. Our human resources are vast, their morale and resolve are indomitable, inspiring us now, just as they did 23 years ago, to defend our homeland. How can there be any doubt that we can and must defeat the German invaders? The enemy is not as strong as some faint-hearted intellectuals might imagine. The devil is not as fearsome as he's portrayed. Who can deny that our Red Army has time and again sent the vaunted German troops fleeing in panic? If one judges not by the latest statements from German propagandists, but by Germany's own official reports, it becomes clear that the Nazi invaders are on the brink of catastrophe. Germany is now gripped by hunger and poverty. In 4 months of war, Germany has lost 4.5 million soldiers. Germany is bleeding dry, and its human reserves are depleting. The spirit of rebellion is spreading, not only among the people of Europe, oppressed by the German invaders, but also among the German people themselves, who see no end to this war. The German invaders are exhausting their last resources. There is no doubt that Germany cannot sustain this level of strain for long. A few more months, perhaps half a year, maybe even a year, and Hitler's Germany will collapse under the weight of its own crimes. Comrades, Red Army soldiers, Red Navy sailors, commanders, political workers, partisans, and partisan women, the whole world is watching you as the force capable of destroying the marauding hordes of German invaders. All the peoples of Europe, temporarily oppressed by Nazi tyranny, look to you as their liberators. A great liberating mission has fallen upon your shoulders. Be worthy of its greatness. You are the liberators in this just war. Let the courageous image of our great ancestors Alexander Nevsky, Dmitry Donskoy, Kuzma Minin, Dmitry Pozersky, Alexander Suvorov, Mikhail Kutuzov inspire you. Let the invincible banner of the Great October Revolution lead you. For the complete destruction of the German invaders. Death to the German occupiers. Long live our glorious motherland. Her freedom and independence. Under the banner of the Great October Revolution. Forward. Victory. June was damp and green. And in the sparks of the warm rain, it seemed weary. The face of the unwavering leader. The banners, the scarlet flags. The invincible march of the front lines. Oh, how he gazes intently at this steel. At the black ashes of foreign standards. Cast down to the ground by their poles. From the hip, as if cast toward a godlike throne. Or into the jaws of a sacred fire. To the Kremlin walls. Comrades, allow me to express my gratitude. Here is the name of our Congress. To all the brotherly parties and groups. The representatives who honored our Congress with their presence. And to those who sent the Congress their greetings. To express gratitude for the brotherly greetings. For the wishes of success. For the trust. This trust is especially valuable to us. It signifies a readiness to support our party in its struggle for a bright future for the people, in its fight against war, in its struggle to preserve peace. It would be a mistake to think that our party, having become a powerful force, no longer needs support. That is not true. Our party and our country have always needed and will continue to need trust, sympathy, and support from the brotherly peoples abroad. The significance of this support lies in the fact that any backing for the goals of our party from any brotherly party means support for their own people in their fight for peace. When British workers in 1918–1919, amid the armed aggression of the British bourgeoisie against the Soviet Union, organized a struggle against the war under the slogan "Hands off Russia," that was support. Support, first and foremost, for their own people's struggle for peace. And then, support for the Soviet Union. When Comrade Torres or Comrade Tolyatti declare that their peoples will not wage war against the Soviet peoples, that is support. First and foremost, support for the workers and peasants of France and Italy, fighting for peace, and then support for the peaceful aspirations of the Soviet Union. This feature of mutual support is explained by the fact that the interests of our party not only do not contradict but are in fact aligned with the interests of peace-loving peoples. As for the Soviet Union, its interests are inseparable from the cause of world peace. It is clear that our party cannot remain indebted to the brotherly parties, and it must, in turn, offer them support, as well as to their peoples in their fight for liberation and for the preservation of peace. As is well known, this is precisely what our party has been doing. Ever since our party took power in 1917, and since it initiated genuine peace and the abolition of capitalist and landowner oppression, representatives of brotherly parties, inspired by the courage and successes of our party, bestowed upon it the title of the Vanguard Brigade of the International Revolutionary Workers' Movement. In doing so, they expressed the hope that the successes of the Vanguard Brigade would ease the plight of peoples suffering under the yoke of capitalism. I believe that our party has justified that hope, especially during the period of the Second World War. When the Soviet Union, having crushed the tyranny of Nazi Germany, Japan, and fascism, liberated the peoples of Europe and Asia from the threat of fascist enslavement, it was undoubtedly difficult to fulfill this honorable role while the Vanguard Brigade stood alone, unique. It was hard while it had to bear this leading role almost single-handedly. But it was done. Now, things are different. Now, with the emergence of new vanguard brigades in the form of the People's Democratic countries, from China and Korea to Czechoslovakia and Hungary, our party finds it easier to fight. And the work has become more cheerful. Special attention should be given to those communist, democratic, or workers' and peasants' parties that have not yet come to power and continue to operate under the boot of bourgeois draconian regimes. Of course, it is more difficult for them to fight. However, it is not as difficult as it was for us, Russian communists, during the Tsarist period, when the slightest step forward was declared a grave crime. Yet, the Russian communists persevered, were not frightened by difficulties, and achieved victory. The same will be true for these parties. Why will it be somewhat less difficult for these parties compared to the Russian communists of the Tsarist period? Firstly, because they have before them the examples of struggle and success from the Soviet Union and the People's Democratic countries. Therefore, they can learn from the mistakes and successes of these countries, which will ease their work. Secondly, the bourgeoisie, the main enemy of the liberation movement, has itself changed significantly, becoming more reactionary, losing its connection with the people, and thereby weakening itself. It is clear that this circumstance should also make the work of the revolutionary and democratic parties easier. In the past, the bourgeoisie allowed itself to play at liberalism, defending bourgeois democratic freedoms and thus gaining popularity among the people. Now, there is no trace left of liberalism. The so-called personal freedom no longer exists. The rights of the individual are now recognized only for those who have capital, while all other citizens are considered raw human material, fit only for exploitation. The principle of government by the people and nations has been trampled upon. It has been replaced by the principle of full rights for the exploitative class and the disenfranchisement of the exploited majority of citizens. The banner of bourgeois democratic freedom has been thrown overboard. I believe it will be up to you, the representatives of communist and democratic parties, to pick up that banner and carry it forward if you wish to gather the majority of the people around you. No one else will raise it. The bourgeoisie was once considered the head of the nation, defending the rights and independence of the nation, placing them above all else. Now, not a trace remains of the national principle. The bourgeoisie now sells the rights and independence of the nation for dollars. The banner of national independence and sovereignty has been thrown overboard. There is no doubt that it will be up to you, the representatives of communist and democratic parties, to pick up that banner and carry it forward if you want to be true patriots of your country, if you want to become the leading force of the nation. This is the situation today. It is clear that all these factors should make the work of communist and democratic parties, not yet in power, easier. Therefore, there is every reason to expect the success and victory of our brotherly parties in countries dominated by capitalism. Long live our brotherly parties. May the leaders of the brotherly parties live long and prosper. Long live international peace. And may those who seek war be defeated. Thank you for joining us on our world. If you found this content valuable, please like, comment, and subscribe.